When it comes to award-winning historical epics, there are two major periods of history that a lot of American filmmakers focus on if they want to improve their chances of getting an award nomination. One period is the American Revolutionary War, and another period is the American Civil War, which is the case for this week's subject for review. Many different events and many different people have been explored and focused on, so naturally it was only a matter of time until we got one focused on the actions of the acting president, Abraham Lincoln. Now, while most films would focus on the battle, like actions during battle, reactions to the battle, and anything having to do with the battles, because we Americans apparently love violence, this film decides to take a more political angle when it comes to the actions of our 16th president. With that said, let's get started with this week's episode of Romney's Reviews. What do I mean by political? Well, rather than focus on the Civil War or be your typical biopic, this film focuses on the Lincoln administration's efforts to get the 13th Amendment passed in the perpetually divided House of Representatives. For those of you that don't know, the 13th Amendment is essentially the amendment that outlawed slavery here in the United States. And the film basically decides to show that no matter what time period you're in, Congress can barely get anything done. Now, the first thing that I have to say about this film is that it's very wordy. A lot of the emphasis is placed on the dialogue, and that's essentially why you're going to watch the film, to see the actors give this dialogue, and, well, monologues in the case of Daniel Day-Lewis, and that's really where most of the emphasis is. In addition to the more dramatic moments and, well, the trailer bait, there's also some good moments of comedy. And it's not like you see congressmen taking pratfalls, but it's more like there's clever wordplay, you see people insulting each other back and forth in the House of Representatives, which, granted, if that's what you saw in Congress today, C-SPAN would be a lot more interesting to watch. With that said, it's just a good example of a film where you watch it solely for the dialogue and solely for the acting, because part of the comedy is just the way certain actors emote. I mean, just the way certain actors react to certain things, it makes you laugh. It's very funny, it's very hilarious. I mean, the whole theater was laughing when we saw those moments in the film. From a technical standpoint, since the emphasis is mostly on the dialogue and the acting, there isn't a lot of emphasis on the music and the sound design. Granted, what music is there is pretty good, because, well, it's John Williams. It's just not the major thing you go to see the movie for. The only other thing that's been focused on as much as the dialogue has been the visuals. And speaking of the visuals, it's shot in a very, very traditional style. I mean, you can tell that this is someone who's been around the block when it comes to film, but it also has a case of where this person's been making films before a lot of these younger filmmakers with their budget flicks. So there's no shaky camera shots or like pointlessly handheld shots for the close-ups. Everything is locked down, the dolly moves are nice and smooth, you would get some nice really wide shots of what would essentially be pretty tiny rooms when you think about it, where you have all the actors in there. And so the shots really complement the dialogue and the dramatic scenes really well. So overall, all I have to say about this film is that it's essentially pure, unapologetic Oscar bait. With that said, it's really good Oscar bait. Point being, it's definitely a lot better than some of the other Oscar bait films that purposely try to cheat the Academy, and it really shows that they're just like, oh, we're making this film solely for the Academy. This film at least keeps itself fairly accessible. So the major groups of people that would probably like it, one, overall is majorly adults. Kids are probably going to be bored out of their minds with this film. But if you're essentially a history buff that's more interested in the political side of things rather than the warfare side of things, you'll enjoy this film. And if you're someone who's studying film or studying acting, this is also a film that you probably will enjoy and will probably take a lot from. With that said, I'm giving Lincoln a 5 out of 5. That really comes as a surprise to probably no one. So that's it for this week's episode of Romney's Reviews. As for next week, I've got a bit of a conundrum. You see, one, the films that are coming out next week are coming out on Black Friday, which just... And two, well, there's two films that I want to review, and they're both on the same day, and I know it's a real struggle to try to do both, so I want to hear your thoughts on it. The two films I want to look at are either Hitchcock or Rise of the Guardians. Comment below which one I should review next, and I'll see you next week. Bye!